Hey homeschool friends, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about Abeka Phonics. I love Abeka Phonics. It has been the only program that has truly taught one of my children to read. So my third grader is now a fluent reader because of Abeka. My second grader is progressing. She's doing so well. And she really started to hit her stride when we switched to Abeka. And then I have some preschoolers who are just starting their Abeka phonics journey and they're just loving it. They love all the games and they don't even know that they're learning beginning reading, to be honest. So in today's video, I plan to give you some tips for how best to use Abeka Phonics, especially if you are thinking about picking it up or if you currently are using Abeka. These are my thoughts. This is what has really worked well for me to teach my children to read. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to the channel if you are new here, or welcome back if you have been coming for a while. So like I said, we are talking all about Abeka Phonics in this video. And if you like that, if you're interested, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you want to, but otherwise let's hop in. I'm gonna start off talking a little bit about Abeka. So Abeka is a Christian homeschool company that has a ton of curriculum. They don't only focus in on phonics, but the phonics program has been the only part of their curriculum that I have used and I have loved it. So these tips are specific to the phonics program and not to really Abeka at large, but I'm sure you could take some of these tips if you are curious about their full package type programs. So Abeka is a traditional style homeschool program, which means they kind of follow a lot of the techniques that are used in public schools and private schools. And actually a lot of public schools and private schools use Abeka. They use the Abeka system and materials, especially a lot of like private Christian schools. But as for homeschooling and teaching your children to read, and after teaching my children to read, I could definitely see why it is such a popular curriculum. And so I do have a number of videos on my channel. I'll scoot over and put up some thumbnails where I have talked about the Abeka Phonics. So the latest video I made, I was doing a comparison video of a number of different popular phonics curriculum. So you'll see that up there in case you're interested in that. I've also done a number of flip throughs of K5 and grade 1 in this video, and then of K4 in this video. And in those two videos there on the bottom, I flipped the camera around and I showed you the teacher's manual. I showed you all the different resources. I talked a lot about which resources I have used and things like that. So go check those videos out if you want some like more in-depth and detail look at these curriculum. That is not what I'm talking about today. Today, like I said, I am talking about tips for using Abeka Phonics. And so before I hop into my tips, I want to mention one quick fact about Abeka, which will help you understand some of my tips. I would say Abeka Phonics slowly builds on itself. And so what I mean by that is that they give the information kind of piecemeal, slowly as you go, and then they include a lot of review to bring back those concepts and bring back those concepts. And so it is very much spiral in its approach, is how I would classify it. But I also see that it has like overlap within the years. And so that is unique. I feel like in phonics programs, usually they go from like book 1 to book 2 or level 1 to level 2. In this case, they do that. I mean, they go from K4 to K5 to grade 1 to grade 2. That's really the big phonics years for Abeka. But I feel like they really overlap. So what I mean by that is that what is taught in K5 will be kind of retaught in grade 1. And there is just so much review and overlap that your kids really get it. And they get so much exposure that I feel like it really helps kind of cement some of those concepts into their brains. So that's just kind of Abeka Phonics in a nutshell. But as for my tips, my first tip is that you don't have to do everything, but you can. I feel like this is a fairly common tip whenever talking about Abeka curriculum because it is known for being very robust and academically challenging and all of these things. But what I like about it is that you can kind of pick and choose. You can use all of it if you need to, or you can pare down when you start to see that your child really understands something. So when it comes to phonics, the way they have it set up in your teacher's manual, which is a beast of a guide here, and the phonics actually comes within the language arts teacher's manual. So there's other things in here. I just don't use those things. I have other curriculum for those things, but I just flip to the specific phonics lessons that we are at. And so what I like about it is it sets it up as the first thing is your phonics lesson, and oftentimes it's phonics and language. So you're getting some language wrapped up into the phonics, but it's primarily phonics, especially in K4, K5, and grade 1. It really starts to shift more in grade 2, but there's still some phonics there as well. And so what I would say is that you do your main lesson, and then that usually is followed by like a phonics review section. And most of the time I skip it. I will skim through it and see if there are any concepts that my children really need to learn or they're just a little bit iffy on, but you can skip it if you need to. But you don't have to. You can use it if you need to. So it can help you kind of slow down if you really need that extra practice. So it has kind of those two things. And then usually at the end of the lesson, it will tell you to pick up your seat workbook. And this is the letters and sounds. So this is the phonics seat work text for grade 1. But you can see it'll be just like one page of the work that they have been doing that day. But also on these pages are a lot of the spiraling review that comes back through. So you kind of have all those things. Those are your components. But then in addition, there are also extra assignments in the back of these books. It's actually called like extra seat work, which I believe you can use for your kiddos if you want to give them even more practice with different aspects of the language arts curriculum. I don't know if much of it is phonics based. We really haven't used it, but I know it is a resource which I can flip to the back of the book and see if there's extra things to give my child if, say, we just need to slow down. So why I feel like this is really nice is that you don't have to use everything, but you can, kind of like I said. So what I mean is it gives you more than you need so that you can find your right amount. And for me as a teacher, I do better with given more as opposed to me trying to create how I'm best going to review or bring these concepts back. I feel like I don't do well in that scenario as a homeschool teacher. And so Abeka really delivers for me in the fact that there is a lot. I feel like some people, the amount can almost paralyze them and that freaks them out. But for me, I know I don't have to use it all. But it's there for when my child starts to get tripped up by a concept and we need to slow down. I have all the resources. I have all the instructions I need. So I really love that. So that's really my first tip, is knowing you have that kind of flexibility within your lesson guides. Okay, my next tip is that you don't have to get all the extra resources, but you can. It really depends on your personality as a teacher as to what you want to pick up for their extra resources. There are a lot of different things, like they have, for instance, a lot of different large flashcards which help with the special sounds, which is their main technique for teaching phonics, is through special sound, which we have found to work really well. So like on some of these basic phonics flashcards, you can see it'll have extra words for them to practice. But then the program also has a number of different charts. Let me flip it around. Charts where it has the list of the special sounds that they're working on. I think there's like 6 or 7 of these big charts. Once you get into kind of grade 1, they'll start teaching this way. But it's the same sounds as what's on the basic phonics flashcards. And then on top of that, they have extra flashcards that you can use. Like for instance, these are the clue word cards, which again, it is your special sounds for that chart. And this chart being chart 8, I think, which is the yellow chart. So it has all of these different flashcards, and there are more flashcards. There's blend cards, there's other things that you can pick up to help you teach that phonics lesson. But you don't have to get all that. You don't have to pick all that up, or you can make it yourself. All of these things are options, but what I do like about having a lot of these extras is that it keeps it a little bit more interesting. So like I said, there is a lot of review, a lot of spiral and Abeka Phonics, and if all I had was this one chart, my kids would start to get very bored. I feel like they would just hate the fact that they have to constantly be doing this, or that's the only tool we have to teach it. Instead, we can pull out these, or I can pull out a whole stack of these, and it's really teaching the same stuff. It's just seeing it a different way, and I really think that helps them. I think that helps them feel like their lesson is not on repeat, if that makes sense. So I see that as a big plus, and I recommend you kind of finding out what your style is and how much of these things you want to pick up, because you don't have to. You can do this program without a lot of that extra stuff, but I really do find it useful, I guess is the best way to put it for me, is to utilize some of those resources. And I feel like it's really helped my kids out a lot as they have been going through this process. And the last tip I have for you guys is the readers. Okay, so I really love these readers. So we have extra readers in our home. We're constantly reading a lot of different books, But when I am actively using the Abeka Phonics program to teach my kids to read, having these readers is really important. And I bought mine used because I feel like they're just a little too expensive for readers. But on the other hand, they are so useful because they line up precisely with what you're teaching. Like for instance, at the beginning of each of these books, so these are a couple of the books from grade 1. And so at the beginning of this reader, you can see that it has the charts listed here. And it's the charts for chart 8 and chart 9. And so we're actively working through those charts in our daily work, and then they get to practice those things in their readers. And so you know that you're not getting ahead of your children's abilities, which I really disliked whenever I would like go to the library and check out early readers, and we'd end up with all these books that had all these crazy big words that my kids just don't know because they're not going through maybe the standard sight word program that the public schools are going through or things like that. And so to have the specific readers to the specific phonics program I am using, it makes a difference. It does. It just makes a huge difference. But I do have some tips for how best to use these. And so in your teacher's guide, it will tell you when you're reading. And so it actually has an AM reading and a PM reading with the idea that your child is reading out loud to you twice a day, which we do. We just don't use Abeka for both of those time frames. I usually use it for the morning one and sometimes the afternoon one, or I'll have them pick out books that they're really interested in reading that I know are within their level. But what I do is I look at those instructions and I look at the page numbers, and then I'll look in here. And the thing about these readers is they're not just stories. Sometimes they're like extra activities that are similar to the workbooks for Abeka. I skip those. I don't do them. I don't see the need to do them. I definitely don't write in my readers, even though it says you could do that, mainly because I have more kids that are going to use these readers and I would like to sell them after we're all done. But we skip those, but those are included in the page numbers that are assigned for the day. And so oftentimes I just won't pay any attention to that. I might use it if my child really needs practice on whatever it is, but oftentimes I will just go to the start of a story and I will read the story, just that story, because a lot of times also within the teacher's guide, it will have the kids stop halfway through a story. And that's just not very much fun. It's not fun for them. I mean, I'll do it if their level isn't quite there, if they're really struggling or fatigued by like 3/4 of the way through the story, we will definitely stop. But a lot of times they're not. At that point, they have worked through a lot of the special sounds and they're feeling pretty good and they can do the stories. And so I will just skip. So I will not follow the instructions for the readers, but I'll stay roughly where we need to be. I will kind of pay attention to the numbers and then I'll read a story kind of near that just to make sure we're not getting ahead or too far behind or anything like that. And sometimes I'll even skip stories. If say we are not doing very many of the afternoon readings with our Abeka reader, then I'll skip some of the stories just to stay up with the pace that I am working with in the teacher's guide, if that makes sense. So I highly recommend these readers. I feel like the stories are great. They're very wholesome. They're very sweet. There's lots of good messaging, but more so it aligns with the phonics, and that is just really helpful, and it's easy to reread and all of those things. So I highly recommend picking up the readers. I know some people will be like, I'll try and just use readers I already own, which you could do, but I think these tie in so well that it really is necessary to use the readers if you're wanting to use the phonics program from Abeka. All right, so I think those were my main tips. A lot of it is just encouraging you to appreciate the flexibility of the program, not be overwhelmed by the amount, just use what you need, things like that. But I really have enjoyed this program. I feel like it's a good fit for someone who is maybe a little bit anxious to teach their children to read. Like you really want the hand holding. You want it all set up for you. Want all of the manipulatives kind of at your fingertips. It's excellent for that. It's also excellent for anybody who does not want to have to bring in their own review or bring in their own extras or be able to assess when they need to slow down or speed up and add or subtract or all that kind of stuff. I feel like Abeka is good for the flexibility, but it also just gives you so much that you never should have to do it yourself. That you should never have to come up with your own stuff, I guess is what I mean. So I highly recommend Abeka. I would love to know below if any of you use Abeka, if you agree with my tips, and if you use it, please add some more tips for how best to use Abeka Phonics, because I definitely want to help any of you who are thinking about using it or currently using it to maybe feel more comfortable and really enjoy the ride, because it has worked really well for my kiddos. So that's all I have for this video. If you liked it, if you found it useful, give it a thumbs up. And otherwise, I will see you guys in the next homeschool video. All right, guys, take care.